Hello out there everybody in YouTube world. Welcome to the first big video of my channel. The 9-day adventure that we're about to go on is my first attempt to create large-scale content on this page. If you like what you see after watching these videos and you want to see more, please give me a like and subscribe. The notion of travel is far more complex than simply going from one destination to the next. It is an experience that's so deep that our very evolution was influenced by its parameters. From our earliest days as aquatic creatures that crawled out of the oceans up to the land above, to our times as hominids traversing the lands of the ancient world, the notion of lengthy journeys have always appealed to the very nature of our souls. So such as I find myself at the ripe old age of 44, my more formative and manic years of my youth behind me, and much like my hairline, age takes away all the volatility of youth and replaces it with a softening of the soul that allows for a deeper mindset of reflection and thought. Am I the only person over the age of 40 who noticed a clearer vision of self? I feel like in my earlier days, when I was in my 20s, I had this veritable cloud of mental obscurity that kept me from entering any real state of higher order thinking, and it really did interfere with my ability to enjoy life in a way that I do now that that cloud has sort of lifted. So making this channel, I really wanted to branch off into content that revolved around adventures that I wanted to have, adventures that I had already been on, and general travel on a reasonable budget. I figured each year this would revolve around a trip that I would take somewhere from my home that would take me somewhere that I had just never been before. For this adventure, I also wanted to take it one step further. I wanted to travel this trip exclusively on my 2022 Honda Navi, which is, as you've seen in some of my previous videos, a 109cc mini moto bike that primarily is used for in-city driving. I frequently get compliments when I'm on the bike, but what I really wanted to show off was its durability and its ability to just drive in any condition. In-city be damned. I also understand that there's no official listing for records on the Honda Navi, and I know this because I called Honda and I sat on the phone with them for a few hours one day and just tried to confirm that there were no records. So I'm actually going to let my trip be my first official addition to what is going to be the official, unofficial Navi records for the longest trip taken on a Navi. So just a reminder, if you would like to see a copy of the official, unofficial Honda Navi records, as well as any information about upcoming content or upcoming rides, go ahead and check out Discord that's linked in the comments. In addition, if you do like this sort of content and want me to delve deeper into big adventures like this, again, give my channel a like and subscribe. It's the only way I can get the YouTube Skynet algorithm to notice my content and recommend it to others. A huge thanks for your support. So the summer of 2024 presented the chance for me to take my bike and travel to anywhere of my choosing. After getting the seal of approval from Mrs. Lomad, my options were pretty much open. After looking at a few different places, I decided I was going to go and just take a nice trip through the middle and eastern part of the US with a trip from Iowa to Virginia and back. Why Virginia? Well, I'm a huge history buff. In fact, I'm a licensed history teacher in the state I live in. And the Jamestown colony has always interested me. I've written pages on historical reflection of Jamestown colony, and I just want to take the opportunity to travel to this place and go to the museum, and I just think it would be a really interesting experience. So just looking at this trip, in the planning phase, we're talking about 1,068 miles one way, and that doesn't even take into account a few key factors. At 45 miles an hour, that's the Navi's top speed. I'm not going to be able to travel on the interstate or even the highway systems unless I want to risk getting blasted off the road by much bigger vehicles traveling alongside of me. Because of this, the entire trip is going to have to be mapped out with verified routes via street maps. That's right, folks. I'm going to track the whole trip step by step on Google Maps before I even do it in Street View to make sure I'm going onto mostly paved roads. Another thing to take into consideration is that I will be avoiding these gravel roads at all times. My general experience with Navi stock tires and gravel roads are pretty scary, and if you know anything about the Midwest and rural areas, gravel and even dirt roads are not out of the question when it comes to running across them randomly. We're going entirely stock on this Navi from front to back. I really wanted to show the capabilities of the bike at just bare bones stock right off the showroom floor. My bike had roughly 2,500 miles on it when I started the trip, and this means no carb modifications, engine, exhaust, even a lighter storage rack modification. It is 100% stock. Yes, this does include the dreaded Honda Navi seat, which people in some of my Facebook groups are already warning me about. If I don't get my hips replaced after the trip, I'll let you know. Another note is the gas can of the Navi is pretty small, at only 9/10 of a gallon. That means stopping roughly every 50 to 70 miles for gas, depending on what and where, and if I find something. I also want to do minimal night driving, as I wanted to avoid getting absolutely annihilated by a deer or a fellow driver as I scooted my way across the old USA. With a top weight capacity of 344 pounds and my beefcake self rocking a 250, I cannot carry more than 94 pounds on this trip, and that includes all the gear on my bike. While this may not be a problem for you accomplished campers, my last adventure sleeping outside was when I was camping back in 2008. 16 long years have gone back, and my old bones have not slept on the ground in many years. And that means everything from my clothes, camera, sleeping gear, tent, everything has to stay under 94 pounds. With the lower the better, as it's no doubt going to affect gas mileage the closer we get to that 344-pound limit. There is no backup plan. There is no camera crew following me on this trip. There's no production team or safety net outside of my bike's insurance and my own health and life insurance. If the bike breaks down, I'm gonna have to figure it out. If I run out of gas, I'm gonna have to figure it out. And with a maximum weight of 266 pounds, the bike can literally be picked up by two crackheads and put in the back of a vehicle and stolen. Luckily, I do have some safety measures. Namely, I got to bring, a bike lock, a chain, and then I just, my old trusty O'Driscoll funeral maker. I'm camping the whole trip, which means that unless I want to sleep under the stars, I better find some lightweight accommodations. And then the big point, staying on budget, is price. As always, we're not looking to spend a ton of money here. We're going to try to keep it under $100 per day with everything. This does take camping accommodations into account as well. So it has been brought up, the idea that maybe I could stealth camp, my bike being very small, my tent not being very large. I could effectively get away with stealth camping, which, if you don't know, is simply finding a place, not paying for it, and as long as nobody sees you, you can camp there and you don't really pay anything. It's like a don't be seen, were you ever there sort of situation. The only problem with that is I just don't want to risk getting arrested in a state that I don't live in. The possible loss of my job back at home. Well, let's be real. I have no problem with stealth camping, and I actually agree pretty heavily with the idea if you've never been discovered, then you were never there mentality. I just don't want to risk anything yet on my first year one trip. In the future, who knows? Another thing is this trip is just all me. This whole video is all me. This channel is essentially all me. I did play around with some AI in my last video, and I'm just not sure if I like the results. I know some content creators are out here spamming the AI button and just putting out that sort of content. I'm not sure if that's really what I want to do. We'll see, but the general response is that I could just do less AI. So now that I've got all those things figured out, it's time to look at what I'm going to need to bring with me on the road. One of the biggest issues I'm currently facing is fuel capacity. The Navi only has a 9/10 of a tank, so I'm going to need to figure out how to increase my capacity without modding the vehicle in any way. And in addition, I wanted to make sure that the means by which I was transferring gas was both clean and efficient. So this was my solution. I got a 2-gallon gas can from the farm supply store. I think the one I got was like $8. And I just simply used every bungee cord that I would be using for my trip in the form of tarps and just used those to strap the tank to the rear part of the seat. It would keep it in place and it'd kind of act as a rest for my backpack. Instead of unstrapping the can every time I want to use it, I got a small hand siphon pump for about $11 off Amazon. This way I can just transfer gas from the can to the tank quickly and again, efficiently. For sleeping arrangements, I just grabbed a one-person tent off Amazon. It's small, but this thing's going to be holding me and all my gear every night when I sleep, and I think I got room. Although the forecast does say that there's going to be clear skies for the next 14 days, I know better than to trust my comfort and well-being in the hands of folks that collect a paycheck, even if they're right or wrong, and I'm talking at you, meteorologists. As such, I grabbed a tarp, and I'm just going to be keeping that on me in case, the ground or the tent gets any decent rain. I just need to make sure I stay dry. So for my cameras, I got my trusty Insta360 camera. This little beast packs such a powerful punch for the content creator on the go. I'm also going to be bringing a battery recharger and a few spares, as well as my trusty $200 Amazon laptop and a charging battery for my phone and other electronics. I'm not sure if some of the sites I'm going to be at will have electricity, so I will grab a small extension cord just in case I have to go big time and charge up my devices in a campground restroom or something, unusual like that. At my route, my supplies, and my window of opportunity, there's nothing left to do but to actually get on the road. Let's go. My window is late July 2024. I'm going to be traveling from my home base here in Iowa, and I'm going to be going through Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, Ohio, West Virginia, and then finally Virginia itself. Bam, knocking all those states off in the first year on the year one trip. And not just regular Virginia, right? But we're going all the way to the eastern part of Virginia, pretty much right near the Atlantic Ocean. At about 5:45 a.m. from my home base, kissed my wife and son goodbye, and I hit the road going south through my native state, where it's going to be roughly about 100 miles, where I will be exiting Iowa into Illinois via Burlington, Iowa. My original plan was to make it to Bloomington, Indiana by nightfall, which would be about 400 miles in 15 hours. The weather was perfect and the traffic was really light. I really do love Iowa, and although I've lived in other parts of the country, I've always found that Iowa is where my heart resides. All of the real adventures I've had in my life have happened here. All the blood I've spilled, the celebrations I've joined, drinks had, mistakes made. It's pretty much all highlighted my life over the last 45 years here in Iowa. This time of the year, the corn starts to grow far past the point of being able to see over it. So many times in Iowa, you just find yourself driving through a tunnel on the road with high corn on either side. Or driving along in an ocean of soybeans that goes on for miles. Things in Iowa stay pretty predictable, and that's how the people around here like it. The small towns I drive through as I make my way down tell a tale of towns that are still making it in a time when farming has become nearly unobtainable for the common man, replaced with massive operations or commercial farming developments. Some of these lands are actually still plowed and worked by the original families that have done so for generations, however, and you see it in the farms when you drive by on the side of the road. It's pretty well known here that a lot of people try to get out of small town Iowa when they're young. I myself have had some friends who did just that. But there is a charm in small town Iowa that can simply not be found elsewhere. A reminder of a time when everybody knew everybody, and the most exciting things to look forward to were not YouTube videos or social media, but community events, enjoying the company of others, and just enjoying the simplicity that a small rural community offers. I drove through a lot of small towns in eastern Iowa that day, and each one is a testament to memories of past times and past glories in these small towns. From memorials to soldiers that died in past wars, faded storefronts of once local businesses that have been replaced by a Casey's or a Dollar General, and faded signs declaring victories of high school games in times past. I've always loved the blend of conditions with Iowa towns. One of them might have or might be near a stable economy and actually be a functional town. Others might simply be a collection of houses that was once called a town maybe 100 years ago, and now there's maybe a few dozen people left. It kind of gives me a reminder of the times when Iowa was a territory prior to 1846, especially along these stretches of road. Many of the earliest settlers in Iowa lived out here and took these roads. After all, Burlington, Iowa was the first and original capital of Iowa, eventually moved up to Iowa City in 1841, and then westward towards Des Moines in 1857. I stopped at the local Casey's in Burlington to refill and stretch. So far, the Navi's held out, no major problems, and I'm 91 miles into the trip. I can see that my next state is right across the river, and I'm looking forward to the journey ahead. It's only 9 a.m. and some change, and we're off to Illinois. By the time I'm passing into the tiny town of Gulfport, Illinois from Burlington, Iowa, the sun is starting to get up into the pinnacle and is starting to really warm up outside. My trip through Illinois is going to take me down near Stronghurst, but I'm going to be going east all the way to Peoria via 116, and then I'm going to go ahead and head south and sort of slide along down towards Terre Haute. This stretch of road from Gulfport was actually on a really nice paved back road, with 116 being an actual highway system. Since it was pretty early, traffic wasn't too bad at all. It was a Sunday morning, and this long bit of road reminds me very much of Iowa. I would even go so far to say as that southern Illinois is probably flatter than eastern Iowa, and much like Iowa, the soil is perfect for farming. Somewhere around Olena, Illinois, I start to disassociate psychologically from immediate concerns. Not in like a dangerous way. I'm still very lucid, driving safely and paying attention. It's just that my immediate concerns regarding my daily routine back home start to fade away, and perhaps my mind adjusting to just not having to deal with anything for the next 10 days, but my thoughts really begin to drift. I don't know if you're one of those people like me. I have an internal dialogue. I talk to myself all of the time, sometimes out loud, and sometimes I forget that people are in the room around me or near me. But in this state of mind that I'm in, I'm really just having a free-floating conversation with myself. The fields of corn and soybeans break up occasionally by pastures and collected herds of cattle. There are massive farrowing buildings, long and white, and they dot the landscape as well. The smells out here are absolutely wonderful. The deep earthy smell of the fields and forest are a vast difference from where I live, where there's a paper mill and an ingredient factory within sight of my home. While back at home I get the smell of burnt cardboard and stale nacho chip dust, the massive open fields present the earth in all of its rawness. This is occasionally broken up by the smell of cow or pig manure, burning debris piles, or the hint of a roadside flower patch growing along the side of the road. Less than an hour later, I get hit with a brief smattering of rain that's just enough to dampen me up, but not enough to interfere with my ability to ride. Already getting lied to by the meteorologist on the first day, and after about 30 minutes, the rain's all gone and it's smooth sailing from there. It's wide open sky for as far as the eye can see, beautiful and blue. Once I get past Peoria, I find myself in a long stretch of road, 32 south to 133 east. So eventually as I'm driving, I'm starting to notice that I'm coming into Amish country. I start to see highway signs that are warning me of buggies. I start to see the distinct plain barn and house styles of the Amish, very square, very box-like. And I start to see signs everywhere advertising for puppies, boxers, mini dachshunds, there were mini ponies, etc. The Amish have a huge hustle going on with purebred dogs. I know that from Iowa, but they also got a good hustle going on here in Illinois as well. I also saw the largest gathering of Amish I've ever seen while driving through a town called Arthur, Illinois, at this park called Eberhart Park. I saw over 100 Amish families in celebration. All of their horse and buggies were lined up very neat and orderly in the park. It was really interesting. It's not something you see every day, and it was just something that appealed to me. By 9:40 p.m., I was crossing the border into Indiana with darkness just about to swallow me up. With a quick look on Google and about 10 minutes of registration on a website, I ended up coming to a place called Lazy Lake Campground in West Terre Haute, Indiana. The lady at the gate was just closing the gate for the night as I came up to it, so I got in just in the nick of time, and I stayed down in the primitive camping at the northern end of the campground. So looking at total on day one, I'm laying in the tent, stretching my legs in the darkness and just reflecting on the day's travels. Out of probably 440 expected miles, I only got about 385 miles over 16 hours total. This right here would put me at probably the longest recorded Navi trip that I've ever heard of in a single day, but it's just the start of my trip. Looking at that $100 a day goal here, it looks like day one I spent $34.32 in gas, $8.53 in food, and with camping, which was about $20, it came out to about $62.85 in total. Along the lines of that, my total mileage for the day was 385. Overall, looking at a quick examination of the bike before I went to sleep revealed that there were no noticeable issues. No leaks in the oil, no sounds, nothing unusual. The exhaust pipe was hot enough to cook bacon on, but besides that, the Navi held up like a champ. By 10:20, I'm locked up, secured, and absolutely passed out in my tent. My legs and my posterior are in utter pain, obviously cramped up a little bit from just holding the position as I ride. I wake up at 5 a.m. to my alarm going off and the sound of the birds outside in full chorus. I get out of the tent, pack everything up, hop on the bike, and exit the campground where I hit a gas station, brush my teeth, and plan today's trip. So my plan today is going to be to travel through Indiana, Kentucky, down the southern rim of Ohio, and into West Virginia. As the sun rose, Indiana's fields along State Road 46 began to blend away into these pockets of forest before finally entering the massive forests that make up central and southern Indiana. On one of these roads, I find the first real major test on the Navi, which is a freshly oil-sprayed gravel road. I had originally intended this stretch of road to go gravel for maybe a couple miles between two stretches of paved road. Within a mile, I could see the freshly oiled road signs, and I figured it wouldn't be terribly far. I've driven on gravel roads my whole life. I've seen patches of sprayed gravel. It's maybe like 100 yards, right? It's only when I see a couple of motorcyclists trying to flag me down as I go onto the road do I start to realize I might be in trouble. So I was expecting maybe 100 yards. It was 4 miles of freshly sprayed, oiled gravel. It was terrifying. I could feel the gravel moving around under the tires as I'm driving, and the bike would just move a little bit to the left or right sometimes. It was like right on the edge of wanting to slide. So I just made sure I did a proper ride. I kept everything tight. I didn't jam on the brakes too hard. And eventually, after about 4 miles, I made it back onto a paved road. No worse for wear. I hit Bloomington, Indiana, go east through town, and then take 433 south. It was actually here that I encountered my first turtle of my trip, which will kind of be a reoccurring theme here shortly. It was about the size of my palm, and being the courteous adventurer that I am, I stopped my bike and carried the turtle as it was going across the road. Eventually, I hit east on Mundell Church Road, and from there, the roads go south and east, back and forth, until eventually I come to Florence, Indiana. Winding through those roads before I got to Florence, Indiana, I had a really painful encounter. I was driving south down 433. Now, mind you, at this point, I've already been pinged and popped by a lot of flying insects. In a world where raindrops sting like bullets, bugs feel like shotgun slugs when they hit you on a bike. I could only imagine if some hail happened to hit me, I might end up wiping out. So as I'm driving, I get smacked in the crook of my right arm by something that's hard enough for me to look down. I look down, and for a split second, I see this really unusual looking wasp-like bug that I've just never seen before. And then it hits me. A sharp, lancing pain that shoots into the back of my elbow and spreads throughout my arm and into my fingers. I yell incredibly loud and almost lose control of the bike. I had to pull off to the side of the road, peel off my arm cover, and I see this nice little sting directly into that big pulsing vein of my arm. For like 10 minutes, I get this weird headache. I have to actually sit on the side of the road for a second and collect myself before I continue on my way. And my arm is on fire. I have no idea what stung me, but it was nasty. After a couple of hours, my forearm starts to swell up a little bit, and the entire area of the crook of my arm down to my elbow turns bright red. Oddly enough, however, all of the pain in my joints seemed to reside. Did the same venom that caused my arm to burn also cause my joints to stop hurting? I wind through southern Indiana, passing through Brownstown. I head east and I skim along the bottom of Big Oaks Nature Reserve. And in between there and North Madison, eventually I hit 56 East and I'm skimming along the Ohio River Scenic Byway before entering into Kentucky. I'm going to be making a quick cut through the top of Kentucky, from Madison to Maysville. I really love Kentucky. It's often thought of as one of the most northern of the southern states, but it really does possess a multitude of charms. The roads wind across valleys, forests, and fields, and the one thing I love about coming through Kentucky is that there are a lot of horse farms and ranches that are in very good condition. Living in Iowa, I'm not unaccustomed to barns, trust me. I have spent my time in plenty of barns as a kid, and even as an adult, I'm in them pretty frequently. But one thing I can really appreciate about Kentucky, in particular the horse ranches, is that their barns and their outbuildings are just really high quality. Even if it's an older building, they're still, well painted, well taken care of and maintained. And you can tell that the farmers in Kentucky really have a pride for what they do. And it shows in the amount of work and dedication they took to just making their farm aesthetically pleasing and beautiful. So after a handful of hours, I cross into Ohio. Now, historically, during the Revolutionary War period, the late 1700s, this area was pretty much the extent of the western border of civilized lands. As I rode along this massive river valley, I could only imagine what colonial period folks must have thought coming into such a beautiful place. Likewise, that same beauty that I behold is what gave this valley its significance to the indigenous cultures that lived in this area as well. The view is simply breathtaking, and the midsummer greenery gives one a tremendous sense of being very small in this large valley. I absolutely love the feeling, and as I wind along the same pathway that people have been traveling for several centuries, I eventually decide to get a camping spot as the night sky is starting to fall upon me. I ended up pulling into Shawnee State Park Campground in Stout, Ohio. This place was very nice, very clean, and new. It also cost me damn near $60 for the camping spot, but I was able to get a spot right next to the camping showers and the bathrooms, which is a major consideration when it comes to my bike and potential theft. Campground security actually came by once and gave me a friendly wave, and the place in general was very nice. I finally got a shower after cooking in the hot sun for the last couple days, and a restroom that wasn't a filthy gas station bathroom. Day 2 wrap up, it looks like I traveled a total of 336 miles. I spent $25.09 on gas, $10.80 on food, and $55 on camping for a total of $90.89. And at this point, I'm pretty sure I'm not coming close to that 440 mile a day range and will have to make some drastic changes, especially since I'm now looking at the impending mountain climb that I'm going to have to do through the Appalachian Mountains tomorrow. Would I be able to get over the mountains in a day? Let's find out.